Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Goten becomes the strongest villain unintentionally? Subscribe if you enjoy the video. And also check the description. So let's begin the story. The morning sun broke over Mount Pozu with a kind of gentle warmth that made everything feel possible. Birds sang their dawn chorus in the ancient forests. And somewhere in the distance, a waterfall cascaded down rocky cliffs with its eternal, peaceful roar. It was the kind of morning that promised nothing but good things. The kind of morning that, in hindsight, felt like a cruel joke. Goten stood at the kitchen window, watching his mother prepare breakfast with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been doing it for decades. Chi-Chi hummed an old tune as she worked, her hands moving in that familiar rhythm. Crack the eggs, whisk them, pour them into the pan. The sizzle and pop of cooking food filled the small kitchen, along with the aroma of rice, miso soup, and grilled fish. "Goten, sweetie, could you set the table?" Chi-Chi called over her shoulder, not really looking at him. She never really looked at him anymore, not the way she used to when he was smaller. Now her eyes always seemed to drift past him, to the empty chair where Goku should be sitting, or to the photographs on the wall where Gohan smiled in his high school graduation robes. "Sure, Mom," Goten replied, his voice carrying that automatic politeness that came from being a good kid. He moved to the cabinet and began pulling out plates, chopsticks, and cups. 3 settings. Always 3 settings now. Dad was off training up somewhere in the world. Gohan had his own family with Videl and Little Pan. It was just him and Mom in this big house that suddenly felt too empty and too full at the same time. He was 10 years old now, not a little kid anymore, but nobody seemed to notice. He'd grown 3 inches in the past year, and his GI pants were getting too short. He'd mentioned it to Chi-Chi twice, but she kept forgetting to take him shopping. She was always distracted lately, always staring off into space with that worried look that made Goten feel like he was doing something wrong just by existing. "Is Dad coming home soon?" Goten asked as he set down the last plate. He already knew the answer, but some part of him kept hoping it would be different this time. Chi-Chi paused, her spatula hovering over the pan. "Oh honey, you know your father. When he gets focused on training, time just slips away from him. But I'm sure he'll be back before you know it. He promised he'd be home for your birthday next month." Goten nodded, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in his chest. Dad had promised to be home for his last birthday too. And the one before that. He'd shown up 3 weeks late with an apologetic grin and a story about fighting some incredibly strong opponent in a distant village. Goten had smiled and said it was okay because that's what good sons did. They understood. They didn't complain. "What about Gohan? Is he coming over today?" Goten tried to keep the hope out of his voice, but it crept in anyway. "Oh, I don't think so, sweetie. You know how busy he is with his research and taking care of Pan. That little girl keeps them running around all day." Chi-Chi laughed, but it sounded forced. "Maybe next weekend we can all get together. I'll make his favorite foods. Next weekend." It was always next weekend, or next month, or when things calmed down. Goten set the table in silence, arranging everything just right the way his mother had taught him. Perfect spacing between the chopsticks and the plate. Cup on the right side. Everything neat and orderly, just like their quiet, predictable life. They ate breakfast together, but Chi-Chi spent most of the meal reading the newspaper, making occasional comments about the news. Some new building opening in Satan City. A championship martial arts tournament coming up that only allowed regular humans. A celebrity wedding that seemed to fascinate her far more than it should. Goten ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. His mother was an excellent cook, everyone said so, but lately everything tasted like cardboard to him. He kept thinking about Trunks, probably eating breakfast at Capsule Corp right now with both his parents. Vegeta might be gruff and demanding, but at least he was there. At least he paid attention to his son's training, pushed him to be better, acknowledged his existence. "Mom, do you think I could train with Vegeta and Trunks sometime?" Goten asked, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Chi-Chi looked up from her newspaper, her eyebrows drawing together. "Train? Goten, you're always training with Trunks. You boys play fight every time you get together." "No, I mean really train. Like Dad used to do with Gohan. Serious training." Goten leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I'm getting stronger, Mom. I can feel it. But I need someone to train with, someone who can push me. Absolutely not. Chi-Chi's voice went sharp, and she set down her newspaper with a decisive thwack. Goten, your brother nearly died a dozen times because of all that fighting. Do you know what it was like for me, watching my little boy go off to fight monsters and aliens? Watching him almost die again and again? But Mom, no buts. You're going to focus on your studies. You're going to have a normal life, a safe life. You'll go to a good school, get a good job, and you'll never have to worry about some monster showing up and trying to kill you. Chi-Chi's eyes were fierce, that protective fire that Goten had seen directed at so many people over the years. I couldn't protect Gohan from that life, but I can protect you. Goten felt something twist inside his chest. I don't need protection, Mom. You need to finish your breakfast and then work on your homework. You have that math packet due on Monday, remember? Chi-Chi stood up, gathering the empty dishes with brisk efficiency. The conversation was over. It always ended this way, with Chi-Chi shutting him down, making decisions for him, treating him like he was still 5 years old. Yes, Mom, Goten whispered, staring down at his half-eaten breakfast. After breakfast, Goten went through the motions of his Saturday routine. Math homework first, even though he could barely concentrate on the numbers. They all seemed to blur together, meaningless symbols on a page. He'd inherited his father's disinterest in academics and his mother's stubborn determination, which meant he could force himself to sit there and work on problems even as his mind wandered elsewhere. Through his bedroom window, he could see the forest stretching out toward the mountains. That's where he wanted to be, out there, pushing his limits, seeing how strong he could become. He was a Saiyan, wasn't he? The son of Goku, Earth's greatest hero. The brother of Gohan, who had defeated Cell and helped save the world from Majin Buu. That power ran through his veins, but nobody seemed to care. Nobody seemed to see him as anything more than the baby of the family who needed to be kept safe and sheltered. By noon, Goten had finished his homework and was officially free. Chi-Chi was in the living room, watching some daytime television show about home improvement. She told him he could play outside as long as he stayed close to the house and didn't go off on any adventures. Those were her words, adventures said with the kind of exasperation that made it clear she thought he was still a child playing pretend. Goten flew out into the forest, moving at a speed that would have been invisible to normal human eyes. The wind whipped through his hair, and for a brief moment, he felt free. He touched down in a clearing about a mile from the house, a place he'd been coming to for the past few months when he needed to think. The clearing was roughly circular, surrounded by tall trees that created a natural arena. The grass had been scorched and torn up in places from his training sessions. He'd been practicing alone out here, trying to push himself to new levels, trying to prove to himself that he wasn't just some kid who needed to be protected. Goten dropped into a fighting stance, his muscles remembering the forms that Gohan had taught him years ago, before his brother had gotten too busy. He moved through a kata, his strikes precise and powerful, each movement flowing into the next. Punch, kick, turn, block. His body knew the rhythm, but there was no satisfaction in it. He was fighting nothing, proving nothing, accomplishing nothing. He powered up to Super Saiyan, feeling the familiar surge of energy as his hair turned golden and his eyes shifted to that distinctive teal. His power level rose dramatically, and for a moment he felt strong, capable, important. Then the transformation ended, and he was just regular Goten again. 10 years old, ignored by his family, told to focus on math homework instead of the incredible power coursing through his veins. This is stupid, he muttered, kicking at a rock. It shot off like a bullet, smashing through 3 trees before disappearing into the forest. The destruction should have made him feel better, but it just made him feel more frustrated. He thought about calling Trunks, but his best friend was probably busy too. Trunks had mentioned something about going to a science exhibition with his mom this weekend. Another reminder that everyone else had families who wanted to spend time with them, who were interested in their lives. Goten sat down in the middle of the clearing, hugging his knees to his chest. The sun was warm on his face, and the forest was alive with the sounds of birds and insects. It should have been peaceful. It should have been perfect. Instead, it just felt lonely. That's when he heard it. A sound like thunder, but different. Deeper. More ominous. It rumbled through the sky, making the ground beneath him vibrate. Goten jumped to his feet, his Saiyan instincts immediately on alert. He looked up, scanning the clear blue sky. There, a streak of fire and smoke, falling at an incredible speed. It wasn't an aircraft. The trajectory was all wrong. It was a meteor, and it was heading straight for Mount Paozu. Goten's heart pounded with excitement. This was it. Something was finally happening. He launched himself into the air, following the meteor's path. Whatever it was, he'd be the first one to find it. He'd prove that he wasn't just some kid who needed to be protected. The meteor crashed into the mountainside with a deafening boom that echoed across the entire region. Trees exploded outward from the impact point, and a cloud of dust and debris shot up into the air. Goten felt the shockwave hit him, but he pushed through it, flying faster. He landed at the edge of the crater maybe 30 seconds after impact. The ground was still smoking, and the smell of scorched earth filled the air. The crater itself was massive, at least 50 feet across and 20 feet deep. At the very bottom, partially buried in pulverized rock, was something metallic. No, not metallic. It was more like crystal. It glowed with a faint, pulsing light that seemed to shift between red and black. The object was roughly spherical, about the size of a basketball, with strange markings etched into its surface. The markings looked almost like writing, but not any language Goten recognized. He should have gone home to tell his mother. He should have called Gohan or Piccolo or any of the other Z fighters. Something about this thing felt wrong, a prickling sensation at the back of his neck that warned of danger. But Goten didn't do any of those things. Instead, he jumped down into the crater, sliding down the loose earth until he stood in front of the mysterious object. Up close, the glow was more pronounced, and he could feel a strange warmth radiating from it. The markings seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them, shifting and rearranging themselves. "What are you?" Goten whispered, reaching out with one hand. "Don't touch it," the rational part of his brain warned. Unknown alien artifact suddenly appearing from space. That's literally how half the bad things in your life have started. But another part of him, a louder part, wanted to touch it. Needed to touch it. This was his discovery. His moment. Something that was his and his alone. His fingers made contact with the surface, and the world exploded. Not literally. There was no force, no blast of energy. But Goten's senses were overwhelmed by a flood of sensations. Images flashed through his mind faster than he could process them. He saw warriors in armor that looked like fusion of Saiyan battle gear and something more ancient, more primal. He saw battles on dead worlds under red suns. He saw power, incredible, limitless power, flowing like a river of fire, and he heard a voice. It wasn't speaking out loud. It was inside his head, resonating through his very bones. Finally, after so long, "I have found one worthy." Goten tried to pull his hand away, but his muscles wouldn't respond. The artifact's glow intensified, becoming almost blinding. Energy flowed from it into him, cold and hot at the same time, like ice water and molten metal flowing through his veins. "You are strong, young warrior. Stronger than you know. Stronger than they allow you to be." "Who?" Goten tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. "Who are you?" "I am a remnant of the old ways. A piece of what your people once were, before they grew soft. Before they forgot what true power means." The voice was neither male nor female, young nor old. It simply was, eternal and absolute. "I have drifted through space for millennia, searching for a Saiyan with the potential to become what I need. And now I have found you." "I don't understand," Goten managed to gasp. The energy flow was increasing, and he could feel something changing inside him. His power level was rising, but it felt different from normal. Darker. Colder. "You feel forgotten. Overlooked. Your father abandons you to train strangers. Your brother is too busy with his own life to remember you exist. Your mother treats you like a child who must be protected from the world." The voice grew more intense, each word driving into Goten's mind like a nail. "But I see you. I see your potential. I see what you could become." "Stop it," Goten whispered, but the words were weak. Because everything the voice said was true, wasn't it? Everything it said echoed thoughts he'd been having for months, thoughts he'd been trying to ignore or push away. Why should you be forgotten? You are the son of a legend. You have power that most warriors could only dream of. And yet they keep you small. They keep you weak. They keep you invisible. The energy surge finally ended, and Goten stumbled backward, his hand breaking contact with the artifact. He fell onto his back in the dirt, gasping for breath. His whole body felt different, charged with energy, humming with potential. He looked down at his hands and saw faint red marks fading from his skin, like circuitry made of light. The artifact had stopped glowing so brightly. It now pulsed with a gentler rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The markings on its surface had changed, rearranged into new patterns that somehow felt directed at him. Personal. Take me with you, the voice whispered, softer now. Almost kind. Keep me close. Let me help you become everything you were meant to be. Let me show you how to make them see you. Goten should have left it there. He should have run home, told his mother, gotten help. Every instinct he'd been raised with, every lesson about suspicious alien artifacts and voices in his head, told him this was dangerous. But when had anyone ever listened to his instincts? When had anyone ever asked him what he wanted, what he needed, what he dreamed about? The artifact was small enough to carry. And nobody needed to know about it. Not yet. Not until he figured out what it was, what it could do. This could be his thing, his secret. Something that was just his. Goten climbed to his feet, brushing dirt from his GI. He walked back to the artifact and, with only a moment's hesitation, picked it up. It was surprisingly light, and warm to the touch. The moment his skin made contact again, he felt that connection re-establish, not overwhelming this time, but present. A constant awareness at the back of his mind. Good, the voice purred with satisfaction. Very good, young warrior. Now let us return to your home. No one need know about me yet. This will be our secret. Our bond. Goten tucked the artifact under his arm and launched himself out of the crater. He flew low and fast, making sure no one would spot him carrying the mysterious object. His mind was racing, trying to process everything that had just happened. Part of him was terrified. This was clearly dangerous, possibly even evil. The artifact's energy felt wrong, tainted somehow. And that voice, it knew things about him that no one should know, touched on fears and insecurities he'd barely admitted to himself. But another part of him, a part that was growing louder, felt excited. For the first time in months, maybe years, something was happening to him. Something that made him feel special, important, chosen. The artifact had called him worthy. When was the last time anyone had made him feel worthy of anything? He reached the house and slipped into his bedroom window, moving silently despite his speed. Chi-Chi was still in the living room. He could hear the television playing. She hadn't even noticed he was gone. See? The voice whispered. She doesn't even know you left. Doesn't even care enough to check on you. That's not fair, Goten muttered, even as a part of him agreed. She's tired. And busy. She was tired and busy when your brother was your age too. But she paid attention to him. She worried about him. She saw him. Goten shook his head, trying to clear it. The voice was wrong. It had to be wrong. His mother loved him. She was just protective. That was all. He looked around his room, trying to figure out where to hide the artifact. Under his bed was too obvious. In his closet would be the first place anyone looked. His eyes landed on the loose floorboard in the corner, the one that had been wobbly for years but no one had ever bothered to fix. Perfect. Goten pried up the floorboard and discovered a small hollow space beneath. Probably just enough room for the artifact. He carefully placed it inside, noting how it continued to pulse with that gentle light even in the darkness. Then he replaced the floorboard, making sure it looked undisturbed. Wise. Keep me hidden. Keep me safe. And in return I will make you strong. Stronger than your father. Stronger than your brother. Strong enough that they will have to see you. I don't want to be stronger than them, Goten protested, but his voice lacked conviction. I just want them to. To what? Notice you? Care about you? Value you? The voice grew gentler, almost sympathetic. I understand, young warrior. I understand what it is to be overlooked, to have potential that no one recognizes. But I see you. And together, we will make them all see you. Goten sat on his bed, staring at the spot where the artifact was hidden. His hands were shaking slightly, and he felt overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. This was crazy. He was keeping a potentially dangerous alien artifact hidden in his room because a voice in his head told him he was special. But wasn't that what he wanted? To be special? To matter? Rest now, the voice said, its tone soothing. You've had an exciting day. Rest, and tonight, when the house is quiet, we will begin your training. Real training. The kind that will unlock your true potential. Training? Goten perked up despite himself. What kind of training? The kind your father should have given you. The kind your brother received. Ancient Saiyan techniques. Lost to time but preserved within me. I will teach you things that no one else knows, show you power that no one else can access. And all I ask in return is that you keep me close. Keep me safe. Keep our bond strong. It sounded too good to be true. Goten knew enough from stories and experience to know that when something sounded too good to be true, it usually was. But the voice felt genuine, and more importantly, it felt like someone was finally taking him seriously, finally treating him like he mattered. Okay, Goten whispered. Okay, we'll train tonight. Excellent. You've made the right choice, young warrior. I promise you won't regret this. The presence in his mind faded to a background hum, still there but not overwhelming. Goten lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His heart was still pounding, and his mind was full of questions he couldn't answer. What had he just done? What was that artifact? What did it really want? But beneath all the questions and concerns, there was something else, a spark of excitement, of anticipation, of feeling like maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change. He didn't know it then, but that spark would grow into an inferno. And by the time he realized what he truly unleashed, it would be far too late to stop. That night, Goten lay in bed pretending to sleep, waiting for his mother to finish her nightly routine. He heard her checking the doors, turning off lights, shuffling down the hallway to her room. The house settled into its familiar nighttime creaks and groans, and still Goten waited. When he was certain Chi-Chi was asleep, he slipped out of bed and quietly lifted the loose floorboard. The artifact was waiting, its glow slightly brighter than before. The moment Goten touched it, he felt that connection snap back into place. Ready to begin? The voice asked. What do I need to do? Simply listen. And trust me, over the next 3 hours, the artifact taught Goten techniques he never imagined. They were Saiyan martial arts, but ancient ones, brutal, efficient, designed for war rather than sport. The voice guided him through forms that made his body move in new ways, explained energy manipulation that went beyond simple ki control, and strangest of all, it felt natural. Like these techniques had always been inside him, just waiting to be unlocked. By the time the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, Goten was exhausted but exhilarated. He'd learned more in one night than he had in the past year. His power level had increased noticeably, and he could feel potential thrumming through his entire being. You did well tonight, the voice praised him. Very well indeed. But this is only the beginning. Every night we will train. And every day, you will grow stronger. Soon, very soon, they will have no choice but to see you. Goten carefully returned the artifact to its hiding place and collapsed into bed. His body was sore, his mind was buzzing, and he felt more alive than he had in months. As he drifted off to sleep, his last coherent thought was that maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to get better. He couldn't have been more wrong. In the darkness beneath the floorboards, the artifact pulsed with satisfaction. It had waited so long for this. A Saiyan child, powerful but neglected, strong but overlooked, with a heart pure enough to accept its influence, and wounded enough to be shaped. The bond was established. The corruption had begun, and the day everything changed had passed so quietly that no one had noticed. Not yet. 3 weeks had passed since Goten found the artifact, and everything had changed. Or rather, everything had stayed exactly the same, and that was the problem. Goten sat at the breakfast table, mechanically spooning rice into his mouth while Chi-Chi bustled around the kitchen. The morning sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in that deceptively cheerful golden light that made the world look perfect when it was anything but. "Goten, honey, you've barely touched your breakfast," Chi-Chi observed, pausing in her endless cycle of cooking and cleaning. "Are you feeling all right? You've been so quiet lately." "She notices you're quiet but doesn't ask why," the voice whispered in the back of his mind. It was always there now, a constant companion that never left him alone. "She sees the symptom but doesn't care enough to find the cause." "I'm fine, Mom," Goten replied automatically. The lie came easily now, polished smooth by repetition. "Just tired from schoolwork." Chi-Chi nodded, accepting his answer without question, and returned to washing dishes. Goten watched her back, feeling that familiar hollow ache in his chest. She used to know when something was wrong. She used to sit down with him, look into his eyes, and refuse to let him hide behind easy lies. When had that stopped? When had he become so easy to dismiss? "When she stopped seeing you as her son and started seeing you as a problem to be managed," the voice supplied helpfully. "A child to be kept safe and quiet while she mourns the absence of your father." Goten pushed away from the table, his appetite completely gone. "I'm going outside to train. Don't go too far," Chi-Chi called without turning around. "And be back for lunch." He was already out the door before she finished speaking. The artifact had changed him in ways both obvious and subtle. Physically, he'd grown stronger, much stronger. His muscles were more defined despite still maintaining his childlike frame, and his ki control had improved dramatically. He could maintain Super Saiyan for hours now without feeling drained, something that would have been impossible a month ago. But the physical changes were nothing compared to what was happening inside his mind. Goten landed in his secret clearing, the place that had become his sanctuary over the past weeks. The forest around him was alive with morning birdsong, completely oblivious to the darkness growing in the heart of the boy who stood in their midst. He pulled the artifact from his backpack. He'd started carrying it with him everywhere, unable to bear being separated from it. The moment it touched his palm, that connection flared to life, stronger than ever. "Good morning, young warrior. Are you ready to continue your training?" "Always," Goten replied, and he meant it. The nightly training sessions had become the highlight of his existence. For those few hours when the rest of the world slept, he felt seen, valued, important, excellent. "Today, we will work on the technique I mentioned yesterday, the Saiyan destruction pulse. It is an ancient art, one that your ancestors used to destroy entire armies." Goten's eyes widened. "Isn't that dangerous? Is lightning dangerous? Is the sun dangerous?" "Power itself is neutral, young warrior. It is only the intent behind it that gives it meaning." The voice grew softer, more persuasive. "Besides, I know you would never use this to hurt innocents. You have a good heart. I simply want to give you the tools to protect yourself. To protect those you care about." That made sense. Goten nodded and fell into a ready stance. "Teach me." The training was intense, pushing him to limits he didn't know he had. The Saiyan destruction pulse required him to gather his ki into a specific pattern, condensing and rotating it until it became unstable. Then, with a precise release, it could be directed outward in a devastating wave of pure destructive energy. Goten's first 3 attempts fizzled out pathetically, barely managing to stir the grass at his feet. The 4th attempt created a blast that carved a 3-foot crater in the ground. The 5th attempt was even stronger. "Excellent progress. You learn so quickly, much faster than I anticipated. You have a natural talent for this that even your father would envy." The praise made Goten's chest swell with pride. When was the last time someone had praised his progress? When was the last time someone had told him he was talented, skilled, worth training? He couldn't remember. They trained for 2 hours straight, with Goten barely noticing the passage of time. The artifact pushed him hard but never beyond what he could handle. It was the perfect teacher, demanding but encouraging, strict but understanding. Everything Goten had ever wanted in a mentor. "That's enough for now," the voice finally said as Goten stood panting in the center of the clearing, his GI soaked with sweat. "You've made remarkable progress. Soon you'll be ready to show them what you've become." "Show who?" Goten asked, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand. "Your family. Your friends. Everyone who has overlooked you. When they see your strength, they will have to acknowledge you. They will have to see you as more than just a child to be protected. Goten felt a flutter of anxiety in his stomach. I don't know if I want to show them yet. What if they ask questions? What if they want to know how I got so strong so fast? Then you tell them the truth, that you've been training hard. Working on your own. They don't need to know about me. Not yet. There was something in the voice that made Goten uneasy, a slight edge that hadn't been there before. I am your secret advantage. Your hidden strength. Why would you give that away? I guess that makes sense, Goten said slowly, though doubt nodded at him. Trust me, young warrior. Have I led you wrong yet? Have I been anything but supportive and helpful? No, Goten admitted. You've been great. Better than, he stopped himself. Better than your father? Better than your brother? You can say it. It's the truth. Goten didn't respond. He carefully packed the artifact back into his backpack and started the flight home. The morning sun had climbed higher in the sky, and he'd been gone longer than he'd intended. Chi-Chi would be starting to worry soon. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe she hadn't even noticed he was gone. You know she hasn't, the voice said. You could be gone for days and she wouldn't notice until she had to set one less place at dinner. Stop it, Goten muttered, but the words lacked conviction. When he arrived home, Chi-Chi was indeed in the kitchen, preparing lunch. She looked up when he walked in, her face showing mild concern. Goten. There you are. I was just about to call you in. Go wash up for lunch. She paused, studying him more closely. Goodness, you're absolutely filthy. What were you doing out there? Just training, Mom. Like I said, Chi-Chi's expression tightened. Goten, we've talked about this. I don't want you overdoing it with this training business. You're only 10 years old. You should be playing, having fun, not working yourself into exhaustion. She wants to keep you weak, the voice hissed with sudden venom. She wants you to stay a child forever, dependent on her, under her control. I am having fun, Goten protested, his voice coming out sharper than intended. Training is fun for me, Mom. It's what Saiyans do. You're not just a Saiyan, you're my son. And I want you to have a normal childhood, not spend every waking moment obsessing over fighting like you're. She stopped herself. But they both knew what she'd been about to say. Like your father. The unspoken words hung in the air between them, heavy and accusatory. I'm going to take a shower, Goten said quietly, turning away before his mother could see the hurt in his eyes. See? She compares you to your father as if it's a bad thing. As if the greatest warrior Earth has ever known is something to be ashamed of. Goten climbed the stairs to his room, each step feeling heavier than the last. He knew his mother meant well. He knew she was just trying to protect him, trying to give him a different life than the one Gohan had been forced into. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. He showered quickly, letting the hot water wash away the sweat and grime from his training. But it couldn't wash away the words echoing in his head, couldn't cleanse the growing darkness that seemed to be seeping into his thoughts. Lunch was a quiet affair. Chi-Chi tried to make conversation, asking about his schoolwork and his plans for the afternoon, but Goten's responses were monosyllabic. He could feel her growing frustration, but he couldn't seem to summon the energy to pretend everything was fine. After lunch, he retreated to his room, claiming he needed to study. Chi-Chi didn't argue, probably relieved to have some time to herself. Goten closed his door, pulled the artifact from his backpack, and sat on his bed holding it. The red and black light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and he felt that constant connection humming between them. It was oddly comforting, like having a friend who was always there, always listening, always understanding. She doesn't appreciate you, the voice said softly. None of them do. But I see your worth. I see your potential. Tell me about the Saiyans, Goten said suddenly. The old ones? The ones you knew. You want to know your heritage. The true legacy that has been kept from you. The voice sounded pleased. Very well. Sit back and listen, young warrior. Let me tell you of the Saiyans as they once were. For the next hour, the artifact wove tales of ancient Saiyan civilization. It spoke of a warrior race that conquered planets not out of cruelty but out of strength, that valued power above all else because power was the only currency that mattered in a hostile universe. It painted pictures of proud warriors who never apologized for their nature, who embraced their instincts rather than suppressing them. It was a far cry from the stories Goten had been told. In those stories, the Saiyans were villains, brutal conquerors who destroyed civilizations for profit. But the way the artifact told it, they were survivors, warriors doing what they had to do to thrive in a universe that showed no mercy to the weak. Your father has forgotten this heritage. He has become soft, playing at being human, pretending that his Saiyan blood doesn't sing for battle and glory. The voice grew more intense. Your brother has completely rejected it, hiding behind books and false peace. But you could be different. You could honor what you truly are. What am I? Goten asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You are a Saiyan. A warrior. A force of nature that should not be contained or suppressed, or told to sit quietly and do mathematics. The voice wrapped around him like a blanket, warm and seductive. You are meant for greatness, young warrior. And I will help you achieve it. A knock at his door made Goten jump. He quickly shoved the artifact under his pillow as Chi-Chi's voice came through the door. Goten? Sweetie, Trunks is here to see you. Goten's heart leaped. Trunks. He hadn't seen his best friend in over a week. He jumped up and opened the door to find Trunks standing in the hallway, his usual confident grin in place. Hey! Ready to go train? Mom said she'd drop us off at the Capsule Corp training facility for a few hours. Trunks' enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, Goten felt like his old self again. Yeah. Let me just grab my stuff. Be careful, the voice warned. Your friend will notice the changes in you. He may ask questions you're not ready to answer. Goten hesitated, then grabbed his backpack, with the artifact safely hidden inside, and followed Trunks downstairs. Bulma was waiting in the living room, chatting with Chi-Chi about some upcoming party at Capsule Corp. Ready, boys? Bulma asked with a smile. I hope you're both hungry because I'm planning to stop for ice cream on the way back. The drive to Capsule Corp was filled with Trunks chattering about the new training equipment his dad had installed, some upcoming martial arts tournament for kids their age, and a new video game he'd gotten. Goten listened, making appropriate responses, but his mind was elsewhere. Your friend has both his parents. He has attention, training, acknowledgement. And yet he treats it so casually, as if it's something everyone has. Goten? You okay, man? Trunks was looking at him with concern. You seem kind of out of it. I'm fine. Just tired. Trunks didn't look convinced but let it drop as they arrived at Capsule Corp. The training facility was state-of-the-art, with adjustable gravity, reinforced walls that could withstand even Vegeta's attacks, and an array of training equipment that would make any martial artist drool. They changed into their training GIs and headed to the main training room. As they warmed up, Goten could feel the artifact's presence in his backpack, which he'd left by the door. Even at that distance, the connection remained strong, the voice a constant whisper in his mind. So, want to spar? Trunks asked, bouncing on his toes with excitement. I've been working on some new techniques. Dad says I'm getting close to mastering the final flash. They fell into their familiar sparring rhythm, trading blows that would have pulverized normal humans. But within the first minute, Trunks stopped, his eyes wide with surprise. Whoa, Goten! When did you get so strong? Goten had been holding back, trying to match their usual level, but even restricted, his improved power was obvious. He shrugged, trying to seem casual. I've been training. A lot. Yeah, but this is crazy. You're way stronger than you were last week. Trunks' surprise turned into excitement. This is awesome. Come on, show me what you can really do. Show him, the voice urged. Show him your true strength. Make him see that you're not just his sidekick anymore. They resumed sparring, and this time Goten didn't hold back quite as much. He moved faster, hit harder, used techniques that he hadn't known a month ago. Trunks struggled to keep up, his expression shifting from excitement to confusion to something that might have been concern. After 20 minutes, Trunks called for a break, breathing hard. Okay, seriously, what's going on? It's like you're a different person. What do you mean? Goten asked, even though he knew exactly what Trunks meant. You're fighting differently. Harder. More. I don't know, aggressive? Trunks studied his friend carefully. And some of those techniques. Where did you learn those? Lie, the voice commanded. He doesn't need to know the truth. I've just been practicing on my own. Trying to get stronger. Goten couldn't quite meet Trunks' eyes. Is that a problem? No. No, of course not. It's great that you're getting stronger. Trunks trailed off, clearly struggling with how to express his concern. You seem different lately. Not just stronger, but different. People change, Trunks. We're not little kids anymore. We're 10. Exactly. Not kids. Trunks looked like he wanted to argue but instead suggested they take a break for water. As they sat against the wall, sipping from their water bottles, Trunks tried again. Hey, is everything okay at home? With your mom and stuff? Goten felt a flash of anger, sharp and unexpected. Why wouldn't it be? I don't know, you just seem. I don't know, man. Forget it. Trunks stood up, clearly uncomfortable. Want to go another round? They sparred for another hour, but the easy camaraderie they'd always shared felt strained. Goten could sense Trunks holding back, not in terms of power but in terms of connection. His best friend was looking at him differently now, with wariness mixed with the usual friendship. He's jealous, the voice said. He's always been the stronger one, the leader. Now that you're catching up, he can't handle it. That's not true, Goten muttered under his breath. What? Trunks asked. Nothing. Let's keep going. When Bulma picked them up later, she could sense the tension between the boys but didn't comment on it beyond asking if they'd had fun. Trunks said yes, but his usual enthusiasm was muted. Goten stayed quiet, staring out the window at the passing city. True to her word, Bulma stopped for ice cream. They sat at an outdoor table, and for a few minutes, things felt almost normal. Trunks told a story about some prank he'd pulled on his dad, and Goten found himself genuinely laughing for the first time in days. But then Trunks had to ruin it. So, have you heard from your dad lately? The question was innocent, asked without any malice. But it hit Goten like a physical blow. His ice cream suddenly tasted like ash in his mouth. No, he said shortly. Oh. Well, I'm sure he'll be back soon. You know how he is with training and stuff. Trunks tried to sound encouraging, but it just made everything worse. He pities you, the voice hissed. Poor little Goten, whose father abandons him for months at a time. That's how they all see you. I don't want to talk about my dad, Goten said, his voice cold. Trunks blinked, taken aback by his friend's tone. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean. Can we just go? I'm tired. The ride back to Mount Pauzu was painfully silent. Bulma tried to make small talk, but even her usually unstoppable cheer couldn't break through the tension. When they finally arrived at Goten's house, he grabbed his backpack and mumbled a quick thank you before practically running inside. Chi-Chi was in the kitchen starting dinner. Did you have fun with Trunks, sweetie? It was fine, Goten said, already heading for the stairs. I have homework. He locked himself in his room and pulled out the artifact. The moment he touched it, he felt a wave of comfort wash over him, like coming home after a long journey. They don't understand you, the voice said softly. Your mother, your friend, none of them see what you're becoming. But that's alright. Soon, they'll have no choice but to see. Trunks is my best friend, Goten protested weakly. He was just worried about me, was he? Or was he worried about himself? About losing his position as the stronger one? Think about it, young warrior. He seemed more concerned about how you'd changed than whether you were happy with those changes. Goten wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because hadn't there been something in Trunks' eyes? Something that looked almost like fear? You're growing beyond him. Beyond all of them. And that terrifies them because it means they can't control you anymore. I don't want to be controlled, Goten whispered. Of course you don't. You want to be free. Strong. Acknowledged for who you truly are. The voice grew warmer, more soothing. And I will help you achieve that. Trust me, young warrior. Trust in our bond. That night, Goten trained harder than ever before. The artifact taught him new techniques, pushed him to new limits, praised him for every achievement. And with each passing hour, the voice in his head grew a little louder, a little more insistent, a little more like his own thoughts. By the time he finally collapsed into bed as dawn approached, Goten could barely remember a time when the voice hadn't been there. It felt like a part of him now, as natural as breathing. He didn't notice how the red marks on his skin took a little longer to fade each time. He didn't notice how his eyes had started to reflect a faint red glow in certain lights. He didn't notice how his smile had become sharper, colder, less like the cheerful boy he'd been and more like something else entirely. Or maybe he noticed and just didn't care anymore. The next morning at breakfast, Chi-Chi tried to talk to him about his day with Trunks. Goten gave short, dismissive answers until she finally gave up with a hurt expression. She retreated to her usual activities, leaving Goten alone with his thoughts. And the voice. She asked about your day but not about you. She went through the motions of being a caring mother without actually caring about the answers. Maybe I didn't give her a chance to care, Goten said, but he didn't believe it. Or maybe she stopped trying. Maybe she decided it was easier to let you be quiet and withdrawn than to actually do the hard work of understanding what's wrong. Goten pushed away from the table and headed outside. He needed to train, needed to feel that sense of power and purpose that only came when he was pushing his limits. The days began to blur together. Wake up, pretend to be normal for his mother, go train alone in the forest, avoid meaningful conversations, train more at night with the artifact. Repeat. Each day, Goten felt himself growing stronger, more capable, more confident. And each day, he felt himself drifting further from the person he used to be. A week after the incident with Trunks, Goten was at school when things took a turn. They were in gym class, playing basketball, a mundane, normal activity that Goten had always enjoyed despite finding it almost comically easy given his superhuman abilities. But that day, something was different. One of his classmates, a boy named Kenji who had always been friendly to Goten, accidentally elbowed him hard in the ribs while going for a rebound. It was completely unintentional, the kind of minor collision that happened in every basketball game. Goten felt a surge of anger, sudden, overwhelming, and completely disproportionate to the offense. His first instinct was to strike back, to show this weak human what happened when you disrespected a Saiyan warrior. Yes, the voice urged. Show him. Teach him to be more careful. Goten's fist was already moving before he consciously decided to throw the punch. He pulled it at the last second, but even the fraction of power he'd used was too much. His fist connected with Kenji's shoulder, and the boy went flying backward, slamming into the gym wall with a sickening thud before crumpling to the floor. The gym went silent. Everyone stared, first at Kenji, who was groaning in pain, then at Goten, who stood frozen with his fist still extended. Goten! The gym teacher rushed over to Kenji. What were you thinking? I didn't mean. Goten looked at his hand, horrified. What had he done? Kenji was just a normal kid, and Goten had hit him hard enough to potentially break bones. It was an accident, but even as he said it, he knew it wasn't entirely true. Some part of him had wanted to hit Kenji, had wanted to assert his dominance, had wanted to show everyone that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Don't apologize, the voice said sharply. He hurt you first. You were simply defending yourself. That was way more than self-defense, another student said, backing away from Goten like he was dangerous. And maybe he was. Kenji ended up with a dislocated shoulder and severe bruising. The gym teacher called Chi-Chi, who arrived at the school looking worried and confused. They had a long talk with the principal, with Goten sitting silently while the adults discussed his violent outburst and excessive response. Chi-Chi was mortified. She apologized profusely, promised it would never happen again, suggested that Goten had just forgotten his own strength in the moment. The principal seemed skeptical but agreed not to suspend Goten, instead requiring him to attend anger management counseling and write a formal apology to Kenji and his family. The ride home was the most uncomfortable of Goten's life. Chi-Chi kept glancing at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Disappointment, certainly, but also something else. Fear? Goten, what happened back there? She finally asked as they pulled up to the house. That's not like you at all. You've always been such a gentle boy. Gentle. She means weak. Soft. Easy to control. It was an accident, Mom. I already told you. That wasn't an accident, that was... Chi-Chi trailed off, shaking her head. I just don't understand. Is something going on? Is someone bullying you at school? Are you angry about something? This was it. The moment where Goten could tell his mother everything. About the artifact, about the voice, about how he was changing in ways that scared him. She would listen. She would help. She would take me away, the voice said urgently. She would destroy our bond, stop your training, keep you weak and overlooked forever. Is that what you want? Nothing's going on, Goten said, his voice flat. I just messed up. Can I go to my room now? Chi-Chi looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. Go ahead. We'll talk more about this later, but they never did. Chi-Chi tried a few more times over the next few days to get Goten to open up, but he stonewalled her every time. Eventually, she stopped trying, retreating into her own world of cooking and cleaning and pretending everything was fine. See? She couldn't even maintain concern for a full week. That's how much you matter to her. The incident at school changed how people looked at Goten. His classmates started avoiding him, whispering when they thought he couldn't hear. Teachers watched him more carefully, ready to intervene if he showed any signs of aggression. Even the principal gave him wary looks when they passed in the hallway. Goten told himself he didn't care. They were just humans, after all. Weak, fragile things who couldn't understand what it meant to have real power. Exactly, the voice purred. You're above them. Beyond them. Why should you care what they think? But late at night, when he was alone with his thoughts, Goten still felt that gnawing guilt. He'd hurt Kenji, someone who had never been anything but nice to him. And worse, part of him had enjoyed it. Part of him had liked seeing the fear in everyone's eyes. 2 weeks after the incident, Piccolo showed up. Goten was in his clearing, practicing the advanced techniques the artifact had been teaching him, when he felt a familiar key signature approaching. He barely had time to stash the artifact in his backpack before the Namekian landed at the edge of the clearing. Piccolo? Goten tried to sound casual, but his heart was pounding. What are you doing here? Piccolo's arms were crossed, his expression unreadable as always. But his eyes were sharp, studying Goten with an intensity that made the boy uncomfortable. Your mother called me. She's worried about you. Piccolo walked further into the clearing, his gaze taking in the scorched earth and destroyed trees. From the looks of things, she has reason to be. Be careful, the voice warned. The Namekian is perceptive. He may sense me. I'm fine. Just training. Goten tried to keep his voice steady. Training. Piccolo's tone made it clear he didn't believe that was the whole story. The kind of training that makes you attack your classmates? That was an accident, was it? Piccolo moved closer, and Goten had to resist the urge to back away. I've known you since you were born, kid. I watched you and Trunks play fight 1,000 times, and you always had perfect control. So what changed? Nothing changed. I just got stronger. Stronger. Piccolo was standing right in front of him now, looking down with those piercing eyes. Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like you're losing control. He's trying to manipulate you. Trying to make you doubt yourself, doubt me? Don't listen to him. I have perfect control, Goten insisted, but even he could hear how defensive he sounded. Piccolo was quiet for a long moment, just watching him. Then he said, let me see your power. Show me what you've been working on. It was a trap. Goten knew it was a trap. If he showed Piccolo his true strength, the Namekian would know something was wrong. He'd investigate, ask questions, probably involve Gohan and the others. But the voice had a different perspective. Show him. Show him how strong you've become. Make him acknowledge you the way he acknowledged Gohan. Make him see that you're not just a child anymore. Before Goten could decide, his body was already moving. He dropped into a fighting stance and powered up to Super Saiyan. But he didn't stop there. Drawing on the techniques the artifact had taught him, he pushed further, his golden aura flickering with traces of red energy. Piccolo's eyes widened slightly, the closest the Namekian ever came to showing surprise. That's interesting, Piccolo said carefully. Where did you learn to manipulate your ki like that? I figured it out on my own, Goten lied. Is there a problem? There's something different about your energy. Something. Piccolo paused, frowning. Something dark. Attack him, the voice suddenly commanded. He's going to try to stop your training, stop your growth. You need to show him that you're beyond his control now. Goten felt his body tense, preparing to strike. For a terrifying moment, he wasn't sure if he could stop himself. His fists clenched, his ki spiked, and Piccolo immediately shifted into a defensive stance. Goten. Stand down. The command in Piccolo's voice was absolute, carrying the weight of someone who had trained warriors for decades. And somehow, miraculously, Goten's body obeyed. He powered down, his transformation ending as quickly as it had begun. He stood there, breathing hard, horrified by what he'd almost done. He'd almost attacked Piccolo, one of his father's oldest friends, one of the Z-fighters who had helped save the world countless times. What's happening to me? Goten whispered, more to himself than to Piccolo. The Namekian's expression softened slightly. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Whatever's going on, Goten, you need to tell someone. Your mother, your brother, me, it doesn't matter who, but you can't handle this alone. Don't listen to him. You're fine. Better than fine. He's just trying to control you like everyone else. There's nothing to tell, Goten said, but the conviction was gone from his voice. I'm training. Getting stronger. That's all. Piccolo studied him for another long moment, then sighed. All right. I can't force you to talk to me. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on you, kid, and if I see you losing control again, I'm getting Gohan involved. Understand? Goten nodded mutely. Good. Piccolo turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Whatever's giving you that extra power, be careful with it. That kind of strength always comes with a price. Then he was gone, launching himself into the sky and disappearing in the direction of the lookout. Goten waited until he was absolutely sure Piccolo was gone, then pulled out the artifact. His hands were shaking. I almost attacked him, he said, his voice hollow. I almost attacked Piccolo. You restrained yourself? That shows control, not lack of it. The voice was soothing, but there was something underneath, satisfaction, perhaps? Besides, he was threatening to interfere with your training. Self-defense is a natural instinct. That's not self-defense. That's... Goten couldn't finish the sentence. That's what? Being strong? Being willing to stand up for yourself? There's nothing wrong with that, young warrior, but it felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. Goten looked down at his hands, at the faint red marks that he could now see even when he wasn't using his power. They looked like veins of corruption spreading through his skin. What are you doing to me? He asked the artifact. I'm making you strong. I'm making you everything you wanted to be. Everything they refused to let you be. The voice grew firmer. You wanted to be acknowledged. To be seen. To matter. I'm giving you that. Don't tell me you want to go back to being invisible. Goten closed his eyes, fighting back tears. He didn't want to go back. Going back meant returning to that hollow existence where no one really saw him, where he was just the kid who needed to be kept safe and quiet. But moving forward meant, what? Becoming something he didn't recognize? Something that could hurt his friends. You won't hurt anyone who doesn't deserve it. You have a good heart, remember? That hasn't changed. You're still you, just a stronger, better version. Promise me, Goten whispered. Promise me I won't hurt anyone innocent. I promise, young warrior. You are in control. You will always be in control. It was a lie, of course. But Goten so desperately wanted it to be true that he chose to believe it. That night, as he trained in secret while his mother slept, Goten tried not to think about the look in Piccolo's eyes. Tried not to think about how Kenji had looked, crumpled against the gym wall. Tried not to think about the growing distance between him and Trunks. The way his mother looked at him with increasing worry and confusion. He tried not to think about any of it and focus solely on the training, on the power flowing through him, on the voice that never judged him, never doubted him, never left him. The artifact pulsed with dark satisfaction. The corruption was progressing faster than anticipated. The boy's resistance was crumbling, his moral foundations eroding bit by bit. Soon, very soon, he would be ready for the next phase. Soon, the innocent child would be gone, and something far more dangerous would take his place. But for now, in the darkness of his room, Goten trained and told himself everything would be fine. The whispers grew louder, and he convinced himself they were his own thoughts, and the day when he could no longer tell the difference was rapidly approaching. The phone call came during dinner on a Tuesday evening, shattering what little peace remained in the Sun household. Goten was pushing food around his plate, barely eating despite Chi-Chi's increasingly worried glances, when the old rotary phone on the kitchen wall rang with its sharp, insistent trill. Chi-Chi wiped her hands on her apron and answered it, her voice bright with forced cheer. "Hello? Oh, Videl. How lovely to hear from. What? Is he okay?" Her expression shifted instantly from pleasant to alarmed. "Oh no. No, of course. We'll be right there. Tell him we love him." Goten's head snapped up, his fork clattering against his plate. "Mom? What's wrong?" Chi-Chi hung up the phone, her hand trembling slightly. "It's your grandfather. Ox King had a heart attack. He's in the hospital in Satan City." She was already moving, grabbing her purse, checking for her wallet. "Videl says he's stable, but they want family there. Gohan's already at the hospital with them." Something cold twisted in Goten's chest. Not because of concern for his grandfather, though he felt that too, but because of what this meant. Another emergency. Another crisis where Gohan got to be the responsible one, the caring one, the son who showed up when it mattered. "And where will you be?" the voice asked softly. "Standing in the background as always, watching your brother be the hero." "Can I come?" Goten asked, already knowing the answer. Chi-Chi paused in her frantic preparations, looking at him with surprise and something that might have been guilt. "Oh, sweetie, the hospital visiting hours are strict, and with family only right now. Plus you have school tomorrow and—" "I'm family too," Goten interrupted, his voice harder than he intended. "Of course you are, honey. I just meant—" Chi-Chi sighed, looking torn and exhausted. "Look, let me go tonight and see how things are. If Grandpa is doing better tomorrow, I'll come get you after school and we can visit together." Okay? It wasn't okay. It would never be okay. But Goten nodded anyway because that's what good sons did. They understood. They didn't make things harder. "Mrs. Brief said she'd come stay with you," Chi-Chi continued, already heading for the door. "She should be here any minute. There's leftovers in the fridge for breakfast, and—" "I know, Mom. I'll be fine." Goten's voice was hollow. Chi-Chi hesitated at the door, her maternal instincts clearly warring with her desire to get to her father. Finally, she crossed back to Goten and pulled him into a quick, tight hug. "I love you so much, sweetheart. I know this isn't easy, but you're being so mature about it." She was gone before Goten could respond, the door slamming behind her with a finality that echoed through the suddenly empty house. Goten sat alone at the dinner table, staring at the cooling food. In Satan City, his whole family was gathering, his mother, his brother, Videl, probably little Pan too. They'd comfort each other, support each other, be there for each other. And here he sat, alone in an empty house, once again left behind because he was too young, too unimportant, too forgotten. "She didn't even wait for Mrs. Briefs to arrive before leaving you alone," the voice observed, its tone almost sympathetic. "In her hierarchy of concerns, you rank somewhere below making sure the door is locked." "She was worried about Grandpa," Goten said weakly, but the excuse felt hollow even to his own ears. Of course she was. And Gohan was there to comfort her, to be the dutiful son. "Where does that leave you?" Goten stood up abruptly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. He needed to move, to do something, to stop the thoughts spiraling in his head. He grabbed his backpack, with the artifact safely nestled inside, and headed for his room. He'd barely made it upstairs when he heard the front door open and Mrs. Briefs' cheerful voice calling out. "Yoo-hoo! Goten, dear? It's just me." Goten paused at the top of the stairs, debating whether to go back down and be social. But the thought of making small talk, of pretending everything was fine, of being the good, polite boy everyone expected him to be felt like too much to bear. "I'm doing homework," he called down. "I'll just be in my room." "All right, sweetie. Call if you need anything." Goten closed his bedroom door and locked it, something he'd been doing more and more lately. The artifact was already pulsing in his backpack, sensing his emotional turmoil, responding to it. He pulled it out and held it, feeling that familiar connection wash over him like a dark tide. "Everyone's with Gohan," he whispered to the artifact, to himself, to the empty room. "Even when it's my grandfather too, everyone goes to Gohan. Because Gohan is the golden child. The scholar. The responsible one. The son who lived up to expectations. The voice wrapped around his thoughts like smoke. And you're just the spare. The backup in case something happens to the first son. Stop it, Goten said, but there was no conviction in his voice. I'm only speaking the truth you already know. When have I ever lied to you? When have I ever left you? Never. The artifact had never left him. It was always there, constant and present in a way his family had ceased to be. That realization should have terrified Goten, should have made him question what he was becoming. Instead, it felt like comfort. He spent the rest of the evening training in his room, keeping his power suppressed so Mrs. Briefs wouldn't notice anything unusual. The artifact taught him new techniques, subtle ones that focused on precision and control rather than raw power. How to manipulate his ki to move objects without touching them, how to sense the emotional states of people nearby. How to project his consciousness beyond his body, experiencing the world from a remove. That last technique proved particularly useful. Goten found he could extend his awareness all the way to Satan City, to the hospital where his family had gathered. He couldn't see or hear clearly, but he could sense their presence, feel the general emotional atmosphere. They were worried but together, supporting each other. A complete family unit that had no space for him. You see? The voice said gently. They don't need you. They're complete without you. But I need you. We need each other. Goten pulled his consciousness back to his body, feeling exhausted and hollow. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, the artifact pulsing softly on his chest in rhythm with his heartbeat. Sleep came eventually, but it was fitful and full of dreams where he called out to his family, and they walked past him without seeing, as if he were a ghost haunting his own life. The next morning, Goten woke to find a note from his mother saying Ox King was stable but would need to stay in the hospital for observation. She'd be staying in Satan City for a few days to help Videl take care of things. Mrs. Briefs would continue checking in on him. She'd call tonight. No mention of bringing him to the hospital. No suggestion that he might want to see his grandfather. Just instructions for how to take care of himself in her absence. She trusts you to be alone because it's convenient for her. Not because she respects your independence. Goten crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. He got ready for school mechanically, barely tasting the cereal he forced himself to eat, his mind elsewhere. School was its own special kind of torture these days. Ever since the incident with Kenji, his classmates treated him like a bomb that might go off at any moment. They gave him wide berth in the hallways, avoided sitting near him at lunch, stopped including him in their games and conversations. Even the teachers watched him differently now, their expressions a mix of wariness and disappointment. Mr. Tanaka, his homeroom teacher who had always been kind to him, now kept his distance, offering only the bare minimum of interaction. Goten told himself he didn't care. These were just humans, after all. Weak, fragile things who couldn't possibly understand what it meant to carry Saiyan blood. But some small part of him, the part that remembered being a normal, happy kid, mourned the loss of those simple friendships. At lunch, he sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, methodically eating his food while pretending not to notice the whispers and stares. His enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversations from nearby tables. Heard he can break concrete with his bare hands. My dad says his whole family are martial artists or something. Should be in a special school, not here with normal kids. They fear you, the voice observed. Good. Fear is the beginning of respect. I don't want them to fear me, Goten muttered into his lunch. What did he want? He wasn't sure anymore. The old Goten would have wanted friends, acceptance, to fit in. But that Goten felt like someone from a distant past, someone naive and weak who didn't understand how the world really worked. The afternoon brought math class, and with it, a test Goten had completely forgotten about. He stared at the equations on the page, the numbers swimming before his eyes. None of it made sense, none of it mattered. What was the point of knowing how to calculate the area of a trapezoid when he could level a building with a gesture? These exercises are beneath you. Busy work designed to keep young humans compliant and distracted. Goten filled out the test randomly, not caring about the answers. When Mr. Tanaka collected the papers, he paused at Goten's desk, looking down at the barely completed test with a frown. Goten, is everything all right? This isn't like you. The concern in his teacher's voice was probably genuine, but all Goten heard was judgment. Another adult looking at him with disappointment, finding him lacking. "I'm fine," Goten said, his voice flat. "Just had a long night." Mr. Tanaka looked like he wanted to say more but seemed to think better of it. He moved on to collect the rest of the tests, leaving Goten alone with his spiraling thoughts. They expect you to care about their arbitrary measures of success while ignoring your actual potential. It's almost comical. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. When the final bell rang, Goten gathered his things and headed out, already planning his evening training session. He was so focused on his own thoughts that he almost didn't notice someone calling his name. "Goten! Hey, wait up!" He turned to see Kenji jogging toward him, his right arm still in a sling. The sight of it sent a jolt of guilt through Goten's chest, a reminder of what he'd done, what he was capable of doing. "What do you want?" Goten asked, more harshly than he'd intended. Kenji stopped a few feet away, seeming nervous but determined. I wanted to talk to you. About what happened. He's going to threaten you. Probably talk to his parents and a lawyer. You should leave before this becomes a problem." "There's nothing to talk about," Goten said, turning away. "Wait." Kenji stepped closer, his voice urgent. "I'm not mad at you or anything. I know it was an accident. I wanted to make sure you're okay." That stopped Goten in his tracks. He turned back slowly, certain he'd misheard. "What? Are you okay?" Kenji repeated, his expression genuinely concerned. "Everyone's been treating you like some kind of monster, and I know that's got to be hard. But I don't think you meant to hurt me that bad. You've always been a good guy, Goten. So I just wanted to say, I forgive you. And I'm sorry if I made things worse." For a moment, Goten couldn't speak. This kid, this normal, fragile human kid whose shoulder he'd dislocated, was apologizing to him? Was worried about how he was feeling? He's weak. His forgiveness means nothing. You should be above needing validation from someone so pathetic. But the voice was wrong. Kenji's words did mean something. They meant everything. Because in that moment, someone was seeing Goten as something other than a threat or a disappointment. Someone was looking at him and seeing a person worth caring about. Goten's voice cracked. "Thank you? I really am sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you so badly." Kenji smiled, and it was genuine, without any trace of fear or wariness. "I know, man. We're cool." He adjusted his sling awkwardly. "Anyway, my mom's waiting. But hey, when I'm healed up, maybe we could hang out sometime? Play some video games or something?" Before Goten could answer, Kenji was gone, jogging toward the parent pickup area. Goten stood frozen in place, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. This was wrong. This didn't fit the narrative the voice had been building. Kenji wasn't supposed to be kind to him. He was supposed to be another example of people failing Goten, judging him, abandoning him. But instead, he'd offered forgiveness and friendship. Don't let one person's misguided sympathy confuse you. He's an anomaly, nothing more. The rest of them still fear you. Still judge you. Maybe that's because I gave them reason to, Goten whispered. Don't be foolish. You gave them a glimpse of your true power, and they couldn't handle it. That's their weakness, not yours. But doubt had taken root, and even the voice's usually persuasive arguments couldn't quite dislodge it. Goten started the walk home. He'd stopped flying to and from school, not wanting to draw more attention, his mind churning. What if he was wrong? What if the artifact was wrong? What if all of this, the training, the power, the growing darkness inside him, was a mistake? Stop that thought right now, the voice commanded, its tone sharp for the first time. You can't go back, young warrior. You've already crossed too many lines, changed too much. Even if you wanted to return to being that weak, overlooked child, you couldn't. That boy is gone. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Goten said, but he didn't sound convinced. Maybe it's not. But you don't get to choose anymore. We are bound now, you and I. Your growth, your power, your very essence is intertwined with mine. Rejecting me means rejecting yourself. Goten arrived home to find Mrs. Briefs's car still parked outside. He let himself in quietly, calling out a greeting before heading straight to his room. He closed the door, pulled out the artifact, and stared at it. The red and black light pulsed steadily, hypnotic in its rhythm. How many hours had he spent staring at this thing? How much had it changed him? And more importantly, how much more would it change him before he was unrecognizable even to himself? What do you really want from me? Goten asked the artifact directly. Why me? Out of everyone in the universe, why did you choose me? Because you were perfect. Strong enough to be useful but overlooked enough to be moldable. Powerful enough to achieve great things but lost enough to need guidance. You were exactly what I needed. That's not an answer. What's your endgame? What happens when I'm strong enough? The artifact pulsed brighter, and the voice grew cold in a way it never had before. The endgame is that you become what you were always meant to be. A true Saiyan warrior, unbound by weakness or sentiment. And when that happens, we will show this universe what real power looks like. Goten felt his blood run cold. You want me to what? Conquer? Destroy? I want you to be free. To stop pretending to be something you're not. You have the power to reshape the world, young warrior. Why waste it on mathematics homework and playing house with a family that barely remembers you exist? Because they're my family, Goten said, his voice shaking. Because I love them. Love. The voice said the word like a curse. Love is what's holding you back. Love is what makes you weak. Your father loves you, and yet he abandons you for months at a time. Your brother loves you, and yet he never has time for you. Your mother loves you, and yet she left you behind today without a second thought. Is that the love you're clinging to? Each word hit like a physical blow, because each word had a kernel of truth that Goten couldn't deny. But beneath the pain, beneath the anger and resentment the artifact was trying to cultivate, there was something else. A small voice that sounded like his own, untainted by corruption. They do love me. They're just imperfect. Like everyone. Like me. I need to think, Goten said aloud, shoving the artifact back into his backpack. Just leave me alone for a while, as you wish. But remember, young warrior, you can hide from your family, you can hide from your friends, but you cannot hide from yourself. And yourself is what I've become. The presence receded to a background whisper, but Goten knew it was still there, always watching, always waiting. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to remember who he used to be before all of this started. He remembered playing with Trunks, their mock battles that were more about fun than showing dominance. He remembered helping his mother in the kitchen, learning to cook her recipes even though he'd never be as good as her. He remembered sitting with Gohan late at night, listening to his brother explain the stars and the universe with such passion and joy. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. That happy, carefree boy seemed like a stranger. But maybe, he didn't have to be gone forever. The phone rang, startling Goten from his thoughts. He heard Mrs. Briefs answer it downstairs, her cheerful voice drifting up through the floorboards. A moment later she called up to him. Goten, dear! Your mother's on the phone. Goten's heart leaped. Maybe she was calling to say she was coming home, or that she wanted him to come to the hospital after all, or just that she missed him and wanted to hear his voice. He bounded down the stairs and took the phone from Mrs. Briefs, who tactfully retreated to give him privacy. Mom? Hi, sweetie. Chi-Chi's voice sounded tired but relieved. I just wanted to check in, let you know Grandpa is doing much better. The doctors say he can probably go home in a few days. That's great, Mom. When are you coming home? Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Videl really needs the help right now with Pan and everything, and your brother is swamped with work he couldn't postpone, so I think I'm going to stay a few more days. Maybe through the weekend. You don't mind, do you? She's asking if you mind. As if your answer would change anything. As if she'd come home even if you begged her to. No, Mom. I don't mind. The words came out automatic, emotionless. Oh, good. You're being such a trooper about this. Mrs. Brief said she's happy to keep checking in on you, and I've arranged for. Mom, can I come visit? Goten interrupted, hating how desperate he sounded. I want to see Grandpa. And I miss you guys. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Chi-Chi spoke again, her voice was carefully gentle. Oh, honey, I don't think that's a good idea right now. The hospital is very strict about visitors, and you'd miss school, And with everything going on, it's complicated. But I promise, as soon as Grandpa is home and settled, we'll have a big family dinner. How does that sound? It sounded like another excuse. Another way of saying he wasn't important enough to include. Sure, Mom. That sounds great. You're the best, sweetie. Now, tell me about school. How was your day? Goten went through the motions of conversation, giving her the sanitized version of his day that she wanted to hear. Yes, school was fine. Yes, he was keeping up with his homework. Yes, he was eating properly. Yes. All the lies parents wanted to hear so they could feel like good parents without actually doing the work. See how easy it is to deceive her. She doesn't even try to look beneath the surface. When the call finally ended, Goten handed the phone back to Mrs. Briefs and returned to his room without a word. The older woman looked concerned but didn't try to stop him. Back in his room, Goten pulled out the artifact again. The moment he touched it, the voice returned in full force. Now do you see? She chose them over you. Again. Your grandfather will recover, your mother will return home, and everything will go back to exactly how it was. You alone and overlooked, while they pretend you matter. What do you want me to do about it? Goten's voice was thick with suppressed emotion. I want you to stop pretending their validation matters. I want you to embrace your true strength and stop holding back for people who don't appreciate the gift you are. I want you to become everything you were meant to be, with or without their approval. And if I don't want that? If I want my family back? Then you're a fool. But I don't think you're a fool, young warrior. I think you're finally starting to understand the truth. That the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. And me. Always me. Goten clutched the artifact tighter, feeling tears threaten to spill. He was so tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of being overlooked. Tired of trying to be good enough for people who never seemed to notice. Make me stronger, he whispered. Strong enough that they can't ignore me anymore. Oh, my dear young warrior. I thought you'd never ask. The artifact flared with dark energy, and Goten felt it surge through his body like liquid fire. This was different from the gradual strengthening of their previous sessions. This was immediate, overwhelming, transformative. His power level shot up dramatically, multiplying several times over in the span of seconds. He could feel his body changing, adapting, becoming a vessel for power that no 10-year-old should possess. The red marks on his skin, which usually faded after training, now remained visible, dark veins of corruption spreading across his arms and up his neck. Yes. This is what you were always meant to be. Stop holding back. Stop being afraid. Embrace your true nature. Goten gasped as the transformation completed, leaving him stronger than he'd ever been but also fundamentally changed. He looked at his reflection in the window and barely recognized himself. His eyes held a faint red glow, and his expression was harder, colder, more predatory. What have I done? He whispered. You've taken the first real step toward your destiny. No more half measures. No more pretending. From this moment forward, you are something new. Something they will have to acknowledge. A knock at his door made Goten jump. Goten, dear? Are you all right? I thought I heard something. Mrs. Briefs's voice was worried, and Goten realized he must have cried out during the transformation. He quickly shoved the artifact back in his bag and forced his power level down, trying to look normal. I'm fine, Mrs. Briefs. Just stubbed my toe. The lie came easily now. Oh. Well, be more careful, dear. I'm making dinner if you're hungry. I'm not hungry. Thanks anyway. He heard her footsteps retreat down the hallway, and he let out a shaky breath. The new power thrummed through his veins, intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. He felt like he could take on the world. He also felt like he was losing himself. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. There's a difference. That night, Goten trained harder than ever before. His new power level allowed him to achieve things he'd only dreamed of before. He maintained Super Saiyan 2 for hours without straying. He created key constructs that moved with his will. He even began to grasp the basics of techniques that his father had mentioned but never taught him. But with each new achievement, each new level of power, Goten felt himself drifting further from who he used to be. The voice that had once been a separate entity in his head was starting to blend with his own thoughts, making it harder to tell where the artifact's influence ended and his own desires began. By the time dawn broke, Goten was exhausted but also exhilarated. He'd crossed the threshold, and there was no going back. The question was, did he want to go back? Of course you don't. Going back means weakness. Going back means being forgotten. And you're done being forgotten. Goten didn't answer. He simply stared at the rising sun and wondered what his family would think when they finally came home and saw what he'd become. Part of him hoped they'd finally see him, really see him. But another part, a growing, darkening part, hoped they'd be afraid, because fear was the beginning of respect, and respect was all he'd ever wanted. 3 days passed, and Goten's mother didn't come home. She called every evening with updates about Ox King's recovery and promises that she'd be back soon. Each call lasted less than 5 minutes, perfunctory check-ins that proved she was thinking of him even if she wasn't choosing to be with him. Goten stopped pretending to care. School became a gauntlet he endured rather than participated in. He showed up, sat through classes without really listening, and left the moment the final bell rang. His teachers' concerned looks followed him everywhere, but none of them actually tried to help. None of them actually cared enough to ask the right questions. Because you're not the problem anymore. You're the kid everyone's afraid will snap. It's easier to avoid you than deal with you. On the third evening after his mother had left, Goten was in his clearing pushing his new limits when he felt a familiar key signature approaching. His heart sank. He knew that energy anywhere. Gohan landed at the edge of the clearing, still wearing his work clothes, dress shirt, and slacks that looked completely out of place in the wilderness. His expression was tired but concerned, his big brother mode fully activated. "Hey, Goten," Gohan said, his voice carefully casual. "Mrs. Brief said you've been coming out here a lot. Thought I'd check on you." He thought he'd check on you. After 3 days of being gone. How noble of him. "I'm fine," Goten said flatly, not turning to face his brother. "Shouldn't you be with Mom and Grandpa?" "Vidal's with them. I had a work deadline I couldn't miss." Gohan walked into the clearing, his eyes taking in the destruction, scorched earth, pulverized rocks, trees snapped in half. "Goten, what's going on with you?" "Nothing's going on. I'm training. Gohan moved closer, and Goten could feel his brother's analytical gaze assessing him. "This goes beyond normal training. The amount of damage here, the energy signature I'm sensing from you, you're way stronger than you were a month ago. How is that possible?" "Tell him it's none of his business. Tell him to leave you alone." "I've been working hard," Goten replied, still not looking at his brother. "Is that a crime?" "Of course not. But this level of improvement in such a short time isn't natural. And Mom said you've been acting differently?" "Withdrawn. Angry. The incident at school was an accident," Goten cut him off, his voice sharp. "I already apologized." "What more do you want?" Gohan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft with genuine concern. "Goten, I'm worried about you. You're my little brother, and I can see something's wrong. I want to help." Those words should have comforted Goten. They should have made him feel loved and supported. Instead, they ignited a fury he didn't know he was carrying. "Help?" Goten spun to face his brother, his eyes blazing. "Where was your help 3 weeks ago? Or 3 months ago? Where was your help when I was sitting alone every night, while Dad trained strangers and Mom pretended I didn't exist?" Gohan looked stricken. "Goten, You what? You've been busy? You have your own family to worry about." "Yeah, I know. Everyone's too busy for me. Everyone has more important things to do than pay attention to the kid who's just supposed to stay quiet and out of the way." "That's not fair," Gohan protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "I've been trying to balance everything." "Trying?" Goten laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You haven't tried. None of you have. You know what I've been doing every night for the past month? Training alone. Pushing myself harder than I've ever been pushed because no one else cared enough to train with me. To teach me. To even acknowledge that I have the same power you do, the same potential." "Goten, you're 10 years old. I'm a Saiyan." Goten's power flared, his hair flickering gold for a moment before he forced it back down. I'm the son of the strongest warrior in the universe, the brother of the guy who defeated Cell. But to you, to everyone, I'm just a kid who needs to be kept safe and quiet. Good. Tell him everything. Make him understand the pain he's caused. I never meant to make you feel that way, Gohan said, taking a step closer. Goten, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Of course you didn't realize. You're too busy with your perfect life and your perfect family to realize anything about me. Goten's voice was rising, years of suppressed resentment pouring out. Do you know what it's like? Being compared to you every single day? Living in the shadow of the great Gohan, who saved the world and then gave it all up to be a scholar? I gave it up because I wanted a normal life. Well, I don't want normal. Goten shouted. I want to be strong. I want to matter. I want someone to look at me and see something other than the kid brother who isn't good enough. Gohan's face was pale, his expression a mix of shock and guilt and dawning horror. Goten, you matter to us. You've always mattered. Then where were you? Goten's voice broke, tears streaming down his face even as fury radiated from every pore. Where were you when I needed someone to train with? Where were you when I felt like I was drowning in this empty house with Mom too distracted to see me? Where were you? Gohan reached out, trying to close the distance between them, but Goten stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't pretend you care now when you've had months to show it. He's weak. Pathetic. He let you down when you needed him most, and now he wants forgiveness? Make him understand. Make him feel what you felt. Goten, please, Gohan said, his voice thick with emotion. Let me make this right. Let me help you. Whatever's going on, whatever's making you feel this way, we can fix it together. I don't need your help anymore, Goten said coldly, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. I've been getting stronger on my own. I don't need any of you. Gohan's expression hardened slightly, his big brother instincts kicking in. Show me. What? Show me your power. You say you've been training, getting stronger. Show me. Gohan's tone was challenging, but underneath was concern. Let me see what you've been working on. This is your chance. Show him how weak he's become. Show him that the little brother he ignored has surpassed him. Every rational part of Goten's mind screamed that this was a bad idea. But the hurt, the anger, the need to prove himself was overwhelming. Before he could stop himself, he was powering up. His transformation to Super Saiyan was instantaneous, and he didn't stop there. Drawing on the power the artifact had given him, he pushed further, his golden aura flickering with traces of crimson energy. The ground beneath his feet cracked and crumbled. The air itself seemed to distort from the sheer force of his power. Gohan's eyes widened, and he instinctively dropped into a defensive stance. Goten, that energy, it's wrong. There's something dark mixed in with your ki. What have you been? Goten didn't let him finish. Moving faster than his brother expected, he closed the distance and threw a punch aimed at Gohan's face. It wasn't a killing blow, but it wasn't a sparring tap either. It was a real attack, fueled by months of accumulated pain and anger. Gohan barely blocked it, the force of the impact driving him back several feet. His expression shifted from concern to alarm. Goten, stop. Whatever's influencing you, you need to fight it. But Goten wasn't listening anymore. The artifact's influence, combined with his own emotional turmoil, had pushed him past the point of rational thought. He pressed his attack, a flurry of strikes that forced Gohan on the defensive. Fight back. Goten snarled. Stop holding back and fight me like I actually matter. I'm not going to hurt you, Gohan said, continuing to block and dodge without returning fire. You're my brother. I'm nothing to you. Goten unleashed a powerful ki blast that Gohan had to deflect, the energy tearing through the forest behind him. Just another responsibility you couldn't be bothered to handle. Yes. Show him your pain. Make him understand through force what he refused to understand through words. The fight, if it could even be called that, continued for several minutes. Goten attacked with everything he had, using techniques no one had taught him, channeling power that shouldn't have been his. And through it all, Gohan refused to truly fight back, only defending, trying to talk his brother down. Goten, please. This isn't you. Something's wrong with your energy, there's a corruption. There's nothing wrong with me. Goten screamed, preparing his most powerful attack yet. I'm finally strong enough to be seen. To be acknowledged. He gathered his ki, preparing to unleash the Saiyan destruction pulse the artifact had taught him. It would be devastating, powerful enough to level a city block, powerful enough to finally make Gohan take him seriously. But as he charged the attack, he saw his brother's face. Gohan wasn't afraid. He wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. "I'm sorry," Gohan whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, Goten. You're right. I failed you. I should have been there. I should have seen what was happening. I love you so much, and I failed you." The attack faltered in Goten's hands. The raw sincerity in his brother's voice, the genuine pain in his eyes, it cut through the artifact's influence like a knife, reaching that small, untainted part of Goten that still remained. "Gohan." Goten's voice was small, lost, the voice of the child he'd been trying to bury. "No! Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. Release the attack. Show him the price of neglect." But Goten couldn't. He looked at his brother, his hero, the person he'd always admired and wanted to be like, and saw genuine remorse and love. And he realized with horrible clarity what he'd been about to do. He'd been about to seriously hurt his own brother. Maybe even kill him. The power in his hands dissipated, and Goten dropped to his knees, his transformation ending. The weight of everything, the months of loneliness, the artifact's corruption, the person he was becoming, crashed down on him all at once. "What's happening to me?" Goten sobbed, his whole body shaking. "Gohan, what's happening to me?" Gohan was at his side in an instant, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I don't know, but we'll figure it out. I promise you, we'll figure it out. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here now, and I'm going to help you." Goten clung to his brother, crying like he hadn't cried since he was a small child. All the pain and anger and loneliness poured out of him in great, racking sobs. And through it all, Gohan held him, murmuring apologies and assurances, being the big brother Goten had needed for so long. "You're being weak. He's manipulating you with false sentiment. Remember your power. Remember your purpose." But for the first time in weeks, Goten pushed back against the voice. "Get out of my head." Gohan pulled back slightly, looking at him with concern. "What did you say?" "Not you. There's something." Goten couldn't finish the sentence. How could he explain the artifact? The voice? The corruption that had been growing inside him? "Show me," Gohan said gently. "Whatever it is, show me. Let me help." Goten hesitated, the artifact's presence screaming at him not to reveal it. But he was so tired of carrying this burden alone. So tired of the lies and the darkness, and the person he was becoming. "In my backpack," he whispered. There's an artifact. It fell from space a few weeks ago. It's been teaching me. Changing me." Gohan's expression turned grim. He retrieved Goten's backpack and carefully pulled out the artifact. The moment it left contact with Goten, the boy felt the connection weaken, though not break entirely. The artifact pulsed in Gohan's hands, its red and black light seeming agitated. "This energy," Gohan said, his voice tight. "It's ancient. Malevolent." "Goten, how long have you had this?" 3 weeks. Maybe a month. I don't remember exactly." "Traitor. Weak, pathetic traitor. After everything I've given you, you betray me to him? It talks to you, doesn't it?" Gohan asked, and Goten nodded miserably. "What does it say?" It says I'm special. That I'm strong. That I deserve to be acknowledged." Goten's voice was barely audible. "It says you all forgot about me." Gohan's face crumpled with guilt. "And we did, didn't we? We got so caught up in our own lives that we forgot to check in on you. To make sure you were okay." He set the artifact down carefully, as if it might explode. "But Goten, whatever this thing is, whatever it's been telling you, it's lying. It's using your pain against you, making it worse." "I know," Goten whispered. "But it felt so good to have someone finally pay attention to me. Even if it was that. I gave you power. I gave you purpose. And this is how you repay me?" "We need to destroy it," Gohan said firmly. "Right now, before it can." "No!" The word tore from Goten's throat before he could stop it. Both he and Gohan stared at each other, shocked by the vehemence of his response. Goten, Gohan said carefully, that thing is corrupting you. We have to get rid of it. I know it is. But... Goten looked at the artifact, still pulsing with that hypnotic light. I can't. It's part of me now. Destroying it might. Might what? Might destroy me too. Finally you understand. We are bound, young warrior. My destruction is your destruction. Tell him. Make him understand. Gohan's expression was horrified. How deep does this corruption go? I don't know. But I can feel it. In my blood. In my bones. In my mind. Goten met his brother's eyes, and Gohan could see the red glow that now permanently resided there. I don't know if I can go back to who I was. Then we'll figure out who you are now. But we're doing it together, without that thing's influence. Gohan picked up the artifact again, his ki flaring protectively. I'm taking this to Piccolo and Dend. If anyone can figure out how to safely separate you from it, they can. Don't let him take me. You need me. Without me, you'll go back to being invisible. But Goten didn't protest this time. He was exhausted, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The fight had drained something essential from him, leaving him hollow and scared. Okay, he whispered. Take it. But Gohan, don't leave me alone. Please don't leave me alone with these thoughts. Gohan immediately wrapped the artifact in his jacket, trying to muffle its influence, and pulled Goten to his feet. I'm not going anywhere. Come on, we're going home. Mom needs to know what's happening, and we need to figure out our next steps together. As a family, as they prepared to fly back to the house, Goten looked back at the destroyed clearing, the evidence of weeks of training under the artifact's guidance. Part of him mourned the loss of that power, that feeling of importance. But a bigger part of him was just relieved. The first fracture had occurred. The bond between Goten and the artifact had been exposed, weakened. But as they flew through the evening sky, the artifact wrapped in Gohan's jacket still pulsed with malevolent intent. Because while Gohan might have possession of the physical object, its corruption had already taken root deep in Goten's soul. And roots, once established, are very hard to remove. The flight back to the Sun House was silent except for the wind rushing past them. Goten flew beside his brother, acutely aware of the artifact wrapped in Gohan's jacket, its presence a constant nagging at the edges of his consciousness. Even muffled and separated from him, he could still feel it, a dark whisper promising power, understanding, belonging. You've made a terrible mistake, the voice said, though it was fainter now, strained by the distance. Your brother will try to take me from you. They all will. And when they do, you'll be nothing again. Goten tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the familiar landscape passing below. Mount Posa had been his home his entire life, but looking at it now, it felt like a place from someone else's memories. The boy who had run through those forests playing games of heroes and villains seemed like a character from a story he'd once read, not someone he'd actually been. They landed in front of the house just as the last traces of sunlight were fading from the sky. Mrs. Briefs's car was still parked outside, and through the windows, Goten could see her moving around in the kitchen, probably preparing dinner that he wouldn't eat. Gohan placed a hand on Goten's shoulder, the gesture meant to be comforting but feeling more like a restraint. Are you ready for this? No, Goten answered honestly. But I don't think I have a choice anymore. They entered the house together, and Mrs. Briefs looked up from where she was chopping vegetables, her cheerful expression faltering when she saw their faces. Oh my! Is everything all right? Mrs. Briefs, thank you so much for staying with Goten. But I think we need some family time right now, Gohan said with a strained smile. I can take it from here. The older woman's intuition, sharp despite her ditzy demeanor, immediately picked up on the tension. Of course, dear. I'll get going then. She gathered her things quickly, pausing at the door to look back at Goten with genuine concern. You take care of yourself, sweetie. After she left, the silence in the house felt oppressive. Gohan set the wrapped artifact on the kitchen table, and both brothers stared at it as if it might explode at any moment. We need to call Mom, Gohan said finally. She should know what's happening. No. Goten's response was immediate and sharp. Gohan turned to look at him, surprised. Goten, she's our mother. She has a right to. To what? Come rushing home and blame herself? To look at me like I'm broken. Goten's hands clenched into fists. She already chose to stay with Grandpa. Let her stay there. That's not fair. You know she'd want to be here for you, would she? Because she's had plenty of opportunities to be here, and she keeps choosing to be somewhere else. Goten knew he was being unfair, knew that his grandfather's health was a legitimate crisis, but the bitterness that had taken root over the past weeks wouldn't let him be reasonable. See? Even your brother doesn't understand. He wants to involve more people, to dilute your importance with committees and family meetings. You were special when it was just you and me. Gohan ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with how to handle the situation. Okay, we'll wait to call her. But we're calling Piccolo right now. And probably Dend. This artifact. He gestured at the wrapped object. This is beyond what I can handle alone. As if summoned by his name, a familiar key signature approached rapidly. Both brothers tensed as Piccolo appeared in the doorway, his expression grave. I felt a massive power spike from this direction, the Namekian said without preamble. 2 power signatures fighting, you two, I'm guessing. His eyes moved from Gohan to Goten, then to the wrapped artifact on the table. And I'm sensing something else. Something that shouldn't exist. Gohan quickly explained what had happened, Goten finding the artifact, the corruption, the changes in his behavior, the fight and the clearing. As he spoke, Piccolo's expression grew darker. Let me see it, Piccolo said, approaching the table. Be careful, Gohan warned. Even wrapped up, I can feel it trying to influence my thoughts. Piccolo unwrapped the artifact, and the moment it was exposed, the room's temperature seemed to drop. The red and black light pulsed more aggressively now, as if angry at being revealed. Piccolo's eyes narrowed as he studied it, his fingers hovering just above its surface without touching. This is Saiyan technology, Piccolo said after a long moment. Ancient Saiyan technology. From before planet Vegeta was destroyed, before even the Saiyans became the race we know now. He looked at Goten with something between pity and concern. This is a corruption sphere. The old Saiyans created them as psychological weapons. They would drop these on planets they wanted to conquer, and the spheres would bond with the strongest warriors on those worlds, slowly corrupting them, turning them into weapons against their own people. Goten felt his blood run cold. That's what it's been doing to me. Turning me into a weapon? Not exactly, Piccolo continued, his voice grim. The spheres were designed to corrupt through offering what the target most desires, usually power and glory. But in your case, he looked at Goten with surprising gentleness. It offered you something you needed even more than power. It offered you acknowledgement. Purpose. The feeling that someone actually cared about you. The words hit Goten like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. The artifact hadn't just offered him strength, it had offered him validation, attention, importance. It had filled a void that his family's absence had created. And I did care, the voice said, sounding almost hurt. I do care. I'm the only one who truly sees your potential, who truly values what you are. Can you separate them? Gohan asked urgently. Can you remove the sphere's influence without hurting Goten? Piccolo was quiet for a long moment, his expression troubled. I don't know. The corruption spheres were designed to create a permanent bond. The longer they're connected to a host, the deeper that bond becomes. And Goten has had this thing for. He looked at the boy questioningly. Almost a month, Goten whispered. A month. Piccolo's jaw tightened. That's a long time. The corruption will have spread through his entire energy system by now. It's not just influencing his thoughts. It's literally become part of his key network. So what are you saying? Gohan's voice was tight with fear. That we can't help him? That he's stuck like this? I'm saying it won't be easy. And it might not be safe. Piccolo looked directly at Goten. Kid, I need to know, how much of what you've been feeling is the sphere, and how much is actually you? It was the question Goten had been avoiding for weeks. The truth was, he didn't know anymore. The artifact had taken his real feelings, his loneliness, his desire to be strong, his resentment at being overlooked, and amplified them, twisted them, used them as a foundation for something darker. But where did his genuine emotions end and the corruption begin? I don't know, Goten admitted, his voice breaking. I don't know what's me anymore. The artifact pulsed brightly, and suddenly Goten gasped, his hand flying to his chest. The connection, which had been weakened by distance, suddenly flared back to full strength. The voice returned in force, no longer a whisper but a roar. Enough! I have been patient. I have been gentle. But I will not let you take what is mine. Goten's eyes snapped open, and they were glowing pure red. His body moved without his conscious control, his hand reaching out toward the artifact. Gohan tried to grab him, but Goten was faster, his corrupted power giving him speed that caught his brother off guard. His fingers closed around the sphere, and the connection re-established fully. Power flooded through him, more intense than anything he'd felt before. The artifact was no longer playing subtle games, it was going all in, pouring everything it had into maintaining its hold on its host. Goten, let go! Piccolo moved to intervene, but Goten's free hand shot out, firing a ki blast that forced the Namekian back. I'm sorry, Goten heard himself say, though he wasn't entirely sure if it was him speaking or the artifact using his voice. I'm sorry, but I can't let you take this from me. You don't understand what it's like. What I've been feeling. This is the only thing that makes me matter. You matter without it. Gohan shouted, his own power flaring as he prepared to restrain his brother. Goten, please, fight it. I know you're still in there. Why should you fight me? Look at them, ready to attack you, to restrain you. They say they care, but what they really want is to control you. To keep you weak and manageable. No, Goten said, but his conviction was wavering. Because wasn't that what this looked like? Gohan and Piccolo, both powered up, both ready to fight him if necessary. They said it was to help him, but how was that different from trying to control him? Goten, listen to me, Piccolo said, his voice calm despite the tense situation. That thing is a parasite. It found you when you were vulnerable and exploited that. Everything it's told you, everything it's made you feel, it's all designed to keep you bonded to it. Because once you're fully corrupted, it can use your body to wreak havoc on this world. Liar! The word tore from Goten's throat, but he wasn't sure if he believed it or if the artifact was making him say it. It's been the only honest thing in my life. Everyone else lies. They say they care but they leave. They say I matter but they forget about me. But it's always been there. Always truthful about what I could become. Yes. Finally, you see the truth. They want to take me from you because they fear what we can accomplish together. Goten's power continued to rise, his aura flickering between gold and crimson. The kitchen table cracked under the pressure, and the windows began to rattle. Gohan and Piccolo exchanged a worried glance. They were running out of time. We need to do this now, Piccolo said quietly to Gohan. Before the corruption becomes irreversible. But you said it might hurt him. It will definitely hurt him. But if we wait any longer, we might lose him completely. Gohan's face was anguished, torn between protecting his brother and saving him. Finally, he nodded. Do it. I'll restrain him. They moved simultaneously. Piccolo's hands began to glow with a specialized energy, a purification technique he'd learned from Kami years ago. Gohan transformed to Super Saiyan and moved to grab Goten, to hold him still long enough for Piccolo to work. But the artifact wasn't going to go quietly. The moment Gohan's hands touched Goten's shoulders, the boy exploded with dark energy. The blast sent Gohan flying backward through the kitchen wall, his body crashing into the yard beyond. Piccolo barely got his guard up in time, the wave of corrupted ki washing over him like acid. I don't want to fight you! Goten screamed, tears streaming down his face even as his body moved to attack. Please don't make me fight you. Then don't fight. Simply leave. Take me and fly far from here. We'll find somewhere they can't reach us, somewhere you can fully embrace your potential. It was tempting. So tempting. Goten could fly away right now, could escape this confrontation and the pain that came with it. He could find some remote corner of the world and just be strong, be acknowledged by the one thing that had never failed him. But then he looked at Gohan, climbing out of the rubble of the kitchen wall, his clothes torn and his face bleeding but his eyes filled with nothing but love and concern. Not anger. Not fear. Just desperate, aching love for his little brother. And Goten realized something. The artifact was wrong about one thing: Gohan did care. Maybe he hadn't shown it well, Maybe he'd been absent when Goten needed him, but that love in his eyes was real. Imperfect, flawed, human love, but real nonetheless. "Help me," Goten whispered, fighting against the artifact's control with everything he had. "Please, Gohan. I don't want to be this anymore. Help me." Those words, that genuine cry for help, broke through Gohan's hesitation. He moved forward without fear, without defense, and wrapped his arms around his brother in a crushing embrace. Goten's corrupted power surged, burning Gohan's skin, but the older Saiyan didn't let go. "I've got you," Gohan said into his brother's ear. "I'm here. I'm not leaving. Fight it, Goten. I know you're stronger than this thing. Release him. He's weak. They're all weak. You are meant for greatness, not for these pathetic displays of sentiment." But Goten was fighting now, really fighting. Not against his brother, but against the voice in his head, against the corruption that had wormed its way into his soul. It was the hardest battle he'd ever fought, because it meant fighting against parts of himself, the anger, the resentment, the desperate need for validation. "Now!" Gohan shouted to Piccolo. The Namekian's hands were glowing bright white now, purification energy at its peak. He placed them on the corruption sphere still clutched in Goten's hand, and the reaction was immediate and violent. Goten screamed. It felt like his entire body was being torn apart from the inside. The artifact's influence, which had spread through his ki network like roots through soil, was being forcibly extracted. Every nerve ending fired at once. Every muscle spasmed. His vision went white with pain. "No! I won't let you take him. He's mine!" The voice was screaming now, no longer persuasive or gentle but desperate and furious. The artifact pulsed with such intensity that it began to crack, dark energy leaking from the fissures. "Piccolo, it's breaking apart!" Gohan yelled over Goten's screams. "What do we do? Keep him stable. If it shatters while still connected to him, the backlash could kill him." Gohan held his brother tighter, pouring his own ki into Goten to try to stabilize him. He could feel the corruption fighting back, trying to maintain its hold, but Piccolo's purification energy was relentless. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Goten's consciousness flickered in and out, sometimes aware of his brother holding him, sometimes lost in visions the artifact projected, memories of loneliness, amplified and distorted to maximum pain. But through it all, Gohan's presence remained constant. His brother's arms never loosened. His brother's voice never stopped murmuring encouragements, and apologies and promises. Finally, with a sound like breaking glass, the corruption sphere shattered. The explosion of dark energy leveled what remained of the kitchen and sent all three of them flying. Goten hit the ground hard, his body smoking, his clothes torn, his mind reeling. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, he became aware of things. The pain in his body, though intense, was cleaner somehow, sharp and physical rather than the deep, corrupting ache he'd grown used to. The voice in his head was gone, truly gone, leaving a silence that felt both liberating and terrifying. And most importantly, he could feel his own thoughts again. Clear and unfiltered and entirely his own. "Goten? Goten, can you hear me?" Gohan's face appeared above him, battered and bloody but smiling with relief. "You're okay. Oh, thank God you're okay. The artifact?" Goten's voice was hoarse, destroyed, completely obliterated. Piccolo made sure there wasn't a single piece left intact. Gohan helped him sit up slowly. "How do you feel?" How did he feel? Goten took internal inventory. His body hurt everywhere. His ki felt strange, as if parts of it had been scraped raw. There were empty spaces in his mind where the voice used to be, and he wasn't sure if he should fill them or leave them hollow. But most of all, he felt exhausted. Bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. "Tired," he whispered. "So tired." Piccolo limped over, his GI torn and his green skin showing several burns. "The corruption is gone," he confirmed. "But it left marks. Your ki network will need time to heal." And mentally, he paused, searching for the right words. "What that thing did to you, the thoughts it amplified and twisted, those don't just disappear. You're going to have to work through a lot of complicated emotions." "I know," Goten said quietly. He looked at his hands, which still bore faint red marks from where the corruption had been most intense. I remember everything. Everything I felt, everything I thought, everything I almost did. His voice broke. I almost killed you, Gohan. I wanted to. Part of me really wanted to, but you didn't, Gohan said firmly, gripping his brother's shoulders. When it mattered most, you asked for help. You fought back. That's what counts, is it? Goten looked up at his brother with haunted eyes. Because I don't think I would have fought back if you hadn't come when you did. Another day, maybe even another hour, and I think I would have been too far gone. The truth of that statement hung heavy in the air. They had come so close to losing him. Minutes could have made the difference between saving Goten and watching him become something monstrous. But we did come, Piccolo said. And you did fight back. Don't torture yourself with what-ifs. He's right, Gohan added. What matters now is moving forward. Getting you healthy again. Helping you work through everything that happened. Goten wanted to believe them. He wanted to accept the comfort they were offering and move on. But as he sat in the ruins of his kitchen, feeling the phantom echo of the artifact's influence, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The corruption might be gone, but the person he'd been before finding the artifact was gone too. That innocent, cheerful boy who just wanted his family's attention, he'd been destroyed somewhere along the way. And Goten wasn't sure of who or what he was now. I should call Mom, Gohan said, pulling out his phone. She needs to know what happened. Wait. Goten grabbed his brother's arm. Please. Not yet. I can't. I can't face her right now. I can't see the disappointment in her eyes. Goten, please, Gohan. Just give me tonight. One night to figure out how to exist without that voice in my head. His grip tightened. And I need you to stay. Don't leave me alone with my thoughts. Not yet. Gohan looked torn, clearly feeling he should call their mother, but ultimately his brother's desperate plea won out. Okay. One night. But tomorrow we tell her everything, and we're going to the lookout so Den can check you over properly. Okay, Goten agreed, too exhausted to argue. Piccolo offered to help clean up the destroyed kitchen, and together the three of them worked to make the house somewhat livable again. The work was good, physical, mindless, distracting. Goten found himself focusing on each small task, grateful for anything that kept his mind occupied. But eventually, the work was done. Piccolo departed with a promise to return in the morning, leaving the brothers alone in the house that suddenly felt too big and too empty. They sat on the couch in the living room, either quite knowing what to say. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and complicated emotions. Finally, Gohan broke it. I meant what I said in the clearing. I failed you, Goten. I got so caught up in my own life that I forgot to check in on you, to make sure you were okay. And that's on me? It's not, Goten started, but Gohan cut him off. It is. You're my little brother. You're supposed to be able to count on me, and I let you down. I can't change that, but I can promise to do better going forward. Gohan turned to face him fully. I want to be part of your life again. Real, actual part of it. Not just showing up for emergencies, but being there for the day-to-day stuff too. The words should have comforted Goten, but instead they stirred up a complicated mix of emotions. Relief, yes, but also anger and resentment that hadn't disappeared just because the artifact was gone. You're only saying that because of what happened, Goten said, unable to keep the bitterness out of his voice. If I hadn't found that thing, if I hadn't almost become a monster, would you even be here right now? Gohan flinched as if struck, but he didn't deny it. You're probably right. I was being a terrible brother, and it took almost losing you to wake me up. That's shameful, and I'm sorry. He took a deep breath. But I'm here now. And I'm asking for a chance to make it right. Not because I pity you or feel obligated, but because I love you and I want to be the brother you deserve. Goten studied his brother's face, searching for any sign of deception or empty promises. But all he saw was genuine remorse and determination. Maybe it had taken a crisis to get here, but Gohan's commitment seemed real. Okay, Goten said finally. But I need you to understand something. That artifact. It didn't create feelings that weren't there. It just amplified them. Everything I said to you in the clearing, all that anger and hurt, that was real. That was me. I know, Gohan said quietly, and getting rid of the artifact doesn't make those feelings go away. I'm still angry that I've been overlooked. I'm still hurt that Dad would rather train strangers than his own son. I'm still resentful that everyone treats me like I'm 5 years old. Goten's hands clenched into fists. And I'm terrified that these feelings make me a bad person. That maybe the artifact was right about me all along. It wasn't right about you. You're not bad, Goten. You're hurt. There's a difference. Gohan placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. And it's okay to be angry about how you've been treated. You have every right to those feelings. What matters is what you do with them. What if I don't know what to do with them? What if I'm stuck feeling this way forever? Then we figure it out together. You, me, Mom, all of us. We work through it as a family. Gohan's expression was determined. And part of that means making real changes. Dad needs to stop disappearing for months at a time. Mom needs to stop being so overprotective that she smothers you. And I need to stop using my family as an excuse to ignore you. The promises sounded good. Almost too good. Goten wanted desperately to believe them, but a cynical part of him, a part that might have existed before the artifact or might have been created by it, wondered how long these promises would last. What if things just go back to normal after a while? Goten asked. What if everyone makes promises now but forgets in a few weeks? Then you call us on it. You demand better from us. And you don't suffer in silence until you're vulnerable to the next corrupting influence that comes along. Gohan squeezed his shoulder. No more pretending everything is fine when it's not. Deal? Deal, Goten agreed, though he wasn't entirely sure he believed it would work. They talked late into the night, with Gohan sharing stories about his own struggles growing up. The pressure of being Earth's defender at 11 years old, the trauma of watching his father die multiple times, the difficulty of trying to have a normal life after so much violence. It helped, knowing that his brother had faced his own demons and survived them. Eventually, exhaustion won out over conversation. Gohan insisted on staying in Goten's room, pulling in the old sleeping bag they used to use for camping trips. As Goten lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he was acutely aware of his brother's steady breathing from the floor. The silence in his head was still unsettling. For weeks, the voice had been a constant presence, and now there was nothing. Just his own thoughts, clear and unfiltered. It should have felt like freedom, but instead it felt like abandonment. Stop it, Goten told himself. That's exactly what it wanted you to think. That you need it. You don't. You survived 10 years without it, and you'll survive the rest of your life without it too. But even as he thought this, he could feel the phantom echo of the corruption. The red marks on his skin might fade, but the memory of that power wouldn't. He'd felt what it was like to be strong, truly, overwhelmingly strong. He'd felt what it was like to be feared and acknowledged and impossible to ignore, and part of him missed it. That realization terrified him more than anything else that had happened. Because if part of him missed the corruption, what did that say about who he really was? Had the artifact created that darkness, or had it simply revealed something that was always there? Gohan? Goten whispered into the darkness. Yeah? His brother's response was immediate, suggesting he hadn't been asleep either. What if I can't go back to being normal? What if I'm different now? There was a pause, then the sound of Gohan sitting up. Then we figure out what your new normal looks like. You don't have to be the person you were before, Goten. Maybe that person wasn't working for you anyway. But what if who I am now is bad? You're not bad. You're hurt and confused and dealing with the aftermath of psychological manipulation. That's not the same thing as being bad. Gohan's voice was firm. And even if you've changed, even if you're different now, you're still my brother. And I'm not going anywhere. Goten felt tears slip down his face, and he didn't try to stop them. I'm scared, Gohan. I'm so scared of what I almost became. Of what I still might become. He heard rustling, and then Gohan was there, sitting on the edge of his bed like he used to when they were younger and Goten had nightmares. I know. But you're not alone in this. Whatever happens, whatever you're dealing with, we face it together. Okay, Goten whispered. Gohan stayed there until Goten finally fell asleep, his presence a comfort against the dark thoughts that threatened to overwhelm. But even in sleep, Goten's dreams were troubled. Flashes of red and black light, echoes of a voice that promised power and belonging, and the lingering question of who he truly was without it. The next morning, they flew to the lookout as promised. Dend and Mr. Popo were waiting, having been informed by Piccolo about what happened. The young guardian's examination was thorough and troubling. The corruption is gone, but it left damage, Dend explained, his hands glowing as he worked to heal what he could. Your key network is scarred. It will heal with time, but there might be complications. What kind of complications? Goten asked, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. Your power might be unstable for a while. Harder to control. And there's a small chance that... Dend hesitated, clearly not wanting to worry him further. Tell me, Goten insisted. There's a small chance that you might retain some aspects of the corrupted power. Not the corruption itself, but echoes of it. Darker techniques, aggressive tendencies, that sort of thing. Dend met his eyes seriously. You'll need to be very careful, Goten. Very aware of yourself and your emotions. Great. So even with the artifact destroyed, he was still marked by it. Still changed by it. The darkness might be gone, but its shadow remained. After Dend finished his examination and healing, Chi-Chi arrived. Gohan had finally called her that morning, and she'd left Satan's city immediately. The moment she saw Goten, she burst into tears and pulled him into a crushing hug. My baby, she sobbed. My poor baby. I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have known something was wrong. Goten stood stiffly in his mother's embrace, not quite able to return it. Part of him wanted to melt into her arms like he used to as a small child. But another part, the part that had been hurt by her absence, amplified by the artifact but real nonetheless, held back. Mom, he said quietly, pulling away. We need to talk. What followed was one of the most difficult conversations of Goten's life. He told his mother everything, finding the artifact, the voice, the training, the growing resentment and anger, the incident at school, almost attacking Gohan. He didn't spare himself or sugarcoat anything, and through it all, Chi-Chi listened with tears streaming down her face. When he finished, Chi-Chi was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I failed you. I was so focused on keeping you safe, on making sure you didn't suffer like Gohan did, that I didn't see I was hurting you in a different way. I smothered you when you needed space to grow. I dismissed your strength when you needed it acknowledged. And worst of all, I wasn't there when you needed me most. Mom, Goten started, but she held up a hand. Let me finish. I can't change what happened. I can't take back the months of loneliness you felt or undo the damage that artifact did. But I can promise to do better, to really see you, not just the child I want you to be but the person you actually are. She took his hands in hers. And I can promise to be there. Really there. Not just physically present but emotionally available. Can you forgive me? Goten looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw the genuine remorse and love in her eyes. The artifact had twisted his perception of everything, making him see abandonment where there was concern, dismissal where there was protection. But now, without that corrupting influence, he could see the truth. His mother had failed him. She had made mistakes, prioritized the wrong things, been blind to his struggles. But she also loved him desperately, and genuinely wanted to make things right. I forgive you, Goten said, and found that he meant it. But Mom, things need to change. Really change. I can't go back to how things were. They will, Chi-Chi promised. Starting with your father. When he gets back from wherever he is, we're having a serious family discussion about priorities and responsibilities. The thought of his father made Goten's chest tighten with a complicated mix of emotions. Goku was still out there somewhere, training up, completely unaware that his youngest son had nearly been corrupted into a monster. Would he care? Would he even notice the changes in Goten? Stop it, Goten told himself. That's the kind of thinking that got you into this mess. Give him a chance. But even as he thought this, doubt lingered. Because while the artifact might be gone, the fundamental issues in his family remained. His father was still absent. His mother was still overprotective. His brother was still busy with his own life. And Goten was still a 10-year-old boy trying to figure out his place in a world that seemed to have no space for him. The day passed in a blur of examinations, conversations, and promises. By evening, Goten was exhausted and ready to go home. But as they prepared to leave the lookout, Mr. Popo approached him with a concerned expression. "Young Goten," the attendant said quietly, "may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Goten nodded and followed Mr. Popo to a quiet corner of the lookout. The ancient being studied him with eyes that had seen countless generations come and go. "The corruption is gone," Mr. Popo said, "but corruption of that nature leaves a mark on the soul. You will always carry the memory of that power, that darkness, and there will be times when you're tempted to seek it out again, to reclaim that feeling of strength and importance." "I know," Goten said quietly. "Do you?" "Because I have seen many warriors fall to darkness over the centuries. Some through corruption like yours, others through pride, anger, or fear, and the common thread among all of them is that they thought they could control it. They thought they were stronger than the darkness." Mr. Popo placed a gentle hand on Goten's shoulder. "The strongest warriors are not those who never face darkness, but those who acknowledge its presence and choose light anyway. Every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. What if I'm not strong enough for that?" Goten asked, voicing his deepest fear. "Then you lean on others. Your family, your friends, your mentors. Strength is not just about power, young one. It's about knowing when to ask for help." Mr. Popo's expression was kind. "And you have something that many who fall to darkness do not. You have people who love you and want to help you. Don't forget that." Goten nodded, taking the words to heart. As they rejoined the others and prepared to leave, he felt a strange sense of peace settling over him. The artifact was gone. His family knew the truth, and while the road ahead would be difficult, he wasn't facing it alone. But as they flew home through the darkening sky, Goten couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of his story. The artifact might be destroyed, but the changes it had wrought in him remained, and deep down, in a part of himself he didn't want to examine too closely, he could still feel the echo of that dark power, still feel the memory of being strong enough to make everyone see him, still feel the temptation to find that strength again, artifact or no artifact. The point of no return hadn't been when he touched the artifact. It hadn't even been when he'd bonded with it. The real point of no return had been when he tasted that power and liked it, when he'd felt what it was like to be feared and acknowledged and impossible to ignore. And now, even with the corruption gone, Goten knew something fundamental about himself. Given the choice between being overlooked and being feared, he wasn't entirely sure which he would choose. That realization terrified him more than anything else. Because it meant that maybe, just maybe, the artifact hadn't corrupted him at all. Maybe it had simply revealed who he'd always had the potential to become. And that person, that angry, powerful, desperate for acknowledgement person, was still inside him. Waiting. Watching. Wondering if it would ever get another chance to emerge. The artifact might be destroyed, but the point of no return had been crossed. And there was no going back.